Hey everyone, today I'm doing my March reading wrap up. So this is a little bit different than what I normally do. Up until this point, I've just done individual book reviews, but today I'm going to be covering some of the books that I read this month, with the exception of the Goosebumps Series 2000 books, because I just recently finished going through and reading that series and uploading individual reviews for some of those books, as well as doing the ranking video. So today I'm just going to kind of cover what I read this month outside of Goosebumps Series 2000 and do brief reviews for each book. So yeah, let's jump into it. So first off, I have my complete fiction of H.P. Lovecraft. Now, I did not read this entire book. This book is like 1,000 pages long. It's the entire collection of all of his short stories and novellas. But I did read 3 short stories from this month, and they were The Lurking Fear, The Rats in the Walls, and The Unnameable. Now, I really enjoyed The Lurking Fear and The Rats in the Walls. I thought those were great stories, very creepy. I really enjoyed both of them. Both of them were a solid 4 out of 5 for me. I don't think I've talked about H.P. Lovecraft on my channel yet. I really started getting into him last year. I first read some of his short stories a long time ago, or not a long time ago, a few years ago. I was probably 18 or 19. I think I rented a book from the library, or not rented, borrowed a book from the library. And I believe it was a big book like this. It was probably his complete collection. And I mainly wanted to read The Call of Cthulhu because it's a very well-known, popular story, and I wanted to see what it was all about. And I kind of got into him, but I didn't read a lot more of his stories besides that one at that time. But last year, I bought this, and I've been going through and reading his short stories periodically in between some of the other books that I read. I'm not making it a chore to like go through and read this entire thing like in this, within a certain time period. I'm just kind of reading them here and there. And I have to say, I really enjoy H.P. Lovecraft. I don't get scared very easily. I don't really get scared at all, to be honest. I'm pretty desensitized. I just have always grown up with horror and been around it for so long that it takes a lot to scare me. But I will say that a lot of his stories do creep me out or unsettle me a little bit. Just the way he writes things leaves a lot to the imagination, and he's very good at what he does. So yeah, I would really recommend checking out some of H.P. Lovecraft's work if you haven't before. The Lurking Fear and The Rats in the Walls were both really good stories. Really enjoyed both of those. The Unnameable, that one wasn't quite as good. It was okay, but it wasn't really anything special. I would give that one probably a 3 out of 5. It's kind of a shorter story. I think it was only like 5 or 6 pages long, whereas The Lurking Fear and The Rats in the Walls were a little bit on the longer side, I believe, like 10 to 15 pages long. But yeah, guys, I read those 3 short stories from H.P. Lovecraft this month, and I can't wait to read more. I'm still only like maybe a quarter of the way through this book. So yeah, I've got a long way to go to get through all of these, but I will one day. Love H.P. Lovecraft. Next up, we have The Phantom of the Opera. This is a book I read earlier this month, and I'm not going to go too in-depth on it because I have an individual review of this book up right now. If you guys want to go back and watch that, you can. But I did enjoy this book. I thought it was really good. I didn't enjoy it quite as much as I was hoping, for it being such an acclaimed classic and so well known. And, this has been adapted into movies many times and rewritten into other stories and whatnot. It's just a very well known story. But I did really enjoy it. It took me a while to get into it. The first half of the book is a little bit slow and kind of confusing of what's going on. But once things picked up around the middle of the book, I was really invested. I really enjoyed the whole second half of the book. Things got very suspenseful, very tense. There was some action and stuff. The first half of the book is focused more on like the romance and stuff of the characters. This book is kind of a mix between romance, suspense, a little bit of horror, not a lot of horror, a little bit. But yeah, this was a really good book. If you're into reading classics or older books, I would definitely check this out. If it's not something you've normally read or you don't have a lot of experience with reading, I would maybe read Dracula or something instead. That's a better classic horror novel to me. But yeah, this was still a good book. I enjoyed it. I can't remember what I give this book. Like a 3.5 out of 5 stars, or maybe I give it a 4 out of 5 stars. I don't remember, but somewhere around there. And yeah, Phantom of the Opera, guys. This was a good book. Next up, we have a couple of Goosebumps books. I actually went to the library recently, which is something I haven't done in forever. I went to my local library. It's very small, and I decided to get two newer Goosebumps books that I have not yet read, which are Most Wanted, The Lizard of Oz, and Slappy World, Slappy Birthday to You. So I decided to get this one because this is only the second Slappy World book that I've read, I believe. Please Do Not Feed the Weirdo was the first one I read, and I did not like it. And I wanted to try another one, and I figured I would start at the very beginning and read Slappy Birthday to You. And this book, I didn't really care for it all that much, to be honest. Now, this wasn't really a bad book. It follows very closely the original Night of the Living Dummy books, or the first two, I should say, from the original series. It's a very similar plot structure. A lot of the same stuff kind of happens. Their family has like this little talent show thing, which was in Night of the Living Dummy 2, I believe. And it's just very similar. And I think that's the reason I didn't care for it as much, is because it's too similar to the older ones and it doesn't do it as well as those originals do. So a lot of the other Night of the Living Dummy sequels that I've read, like number 3 and then the 2 books from Series 2000, Slappy's Nightmare and Bride of the Living Dummy, those books were really good and they offered something new to the Night of the Living Dummy series. They were unique in their own way. They had their very like creative aspects to the stories. This one didn't really have anything new to it. It was just, to me, felt kind of like a rehash of Night of the Living Dummy 2 or something. And I mean, it was a little bit different in ways, but it just was not as good. It was a little bit disappointing to me. I think I give this book like a 2.5 out of 5 stars. So yeah, didn't really care for this one all that much. But again, it's not horrible. I think this book would still appeal to a lot of newer Goosebumps fans that maybe didn't grow up with the original series. But for me, it just didn't really do much. Next up, The Lizard of Oz. This one was horrible. This was not a good Goosebumps book, guys. I don't really have much to say about this one, to be honest. I just really didn't like it. I got a little bit of enjoyment out of just how cheesy it was. Minor spoiler alert. The girl starts to turn into a lizard. That's kind of like the main conflict of the story. Her parents go to Australia. They all go to Australia. And they take this weird lizard home with them. And the lizard bites her. And then she's slowly turning into a lizard. And it's just really weird. And it's a little bit funny at times. It just feels like a really cheesy B-horror movie or something. But overall, it really wasn't that good. The twist ending is completely idiotic, and the story is just very flawed. There's so many things wrong with this book. It just, so much in it that doesn't make sense. So yeah, this was really not a very good book. This is part of the Most Wanted series. This might be my least favorite Most Wanted book I've read so far. I don't know. I would have to go back and look at the other ones again. I don't remember for sure which ones I've read. I believe I've read about 5 or 6 Most Wanted books, so I've definitely read more than the Slappy World ones, but yeah, anyways, this just was not a very good book. All right, guys, moving on. We are getting to a book that's on a completely different end of the spectrum of books, and that is 13 Hours. And this is a true story of a U.S. diplomatic compound in Benghazi that was invaded by terrorists. It was a terrorist attack, and this was really interesting. I really enjoyed reading this. I really like reading nonfiction stories every once in a while just to switch things up. I used to read a lot of like true war stories and autobiographies of veterans and soldiers and stuff a lot more when I was younger, in my teen years and whatnot. And it's been a while since I've read one, and I was really just interested in this. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, guys, this was a good book. I don't really have a whole lot else to say about it. I really enjoyed it. I felt like everything in here made sense. Everything was covered pretty well. I feel like this is probably really close to what happened. There was these guys, the GRS. Guys, I'm really tired right now. I'm not going to try to get into this book too much because I can't even remember all the different names of the soldiers and security teams and everything. I'm just drawing a blank right now. So yeah, guys, if you're into reading nonfiction stuff, I don't know, maybe check this out. They made a movie on it too. I don't know if this is actually part of the movie cover. It says major motion picture up there in the corner. But yeah, guys, this was an interesting book. And last, we have Dean Koontz's Strange Highways. Now, I'm actually not quite finished with this yet. I have like 50 pages left to go. But this is not a novel. This is a short story and novella collection. And this happens to be Dean Koontz's only novella and short story collection. So I'm on the very last story, which is a novella. And there's 14 stories in here in total, 2 novellas and 12 short stories. And so far, I'm pretty disappointed with this, to be honest. I was excited going into this, but I was just really let down by it. I don't really think Dean Koontz is the best short story writer. And being that this is the only short story collection that he's published, and most of the short stories in here too, he wrote very early in his career, like in the 1970s and the 1980s. I think there's only a couple stories in here from the 90s. So this is more of just a collection of stories he wrote in the past and published in magazines and whatnot. And you can tell that the stories in here, for the most part, are not exactly very high quality. They're just kind of boring, cheesy sci-fi tales. I think half the stories in here are probably sci-fi tales, like just straight science fiction. Some of them have elements of horror to them. There's a couple that are straight horror or straight suspense, but most of them fall under the sci-fi genre. And I just did not really care for them all that much, to be honest. I might do an individual review of this book when I'm finished with it. But yeah, for the most part, I didn't really care for it. There was only 2, maybe 3 short stories that I liked. And even then, they weren't amazing. They were just decent or good. But yeah, like I said, I'm on the last story. We'll see how it turns out. But so far, I'm pretty disappointed with this book, to be honest. So yeah, guys, that's what I've read in the month of March. Thanks for watching, guys. If you want to look at more of my book reviews, I'm going to post a link to my Goodreads down in the description, because I tend to write reviews more for books on there than I do post video reviews for the books that I read. So if you guys want to go check out my Goodreads reviews, I'll post a link down there. If you guys have read any of these books and you have any thoughts on them, let me know down in the comments what you think of them. And again, to some of these books, Phantom of the Opera, I have an individual review of this up, and I might do individual review of Strange Highways once I'm done with it. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching.